You know that feeling, right? That powerful wave of déjà vu or a memory you swear is real but nobody else seems to share? We usually just shake it off, a trick of the mind. But what if it's not? What if those moments are actually little cracks, brief glimpses into a reality that has somehow shifted? Well, today we're diving into some of the most unsettling stories from people who claim the world they woke up in just wasn't the one they went to sleep in.
No, really, think about it. What if you rolled over in bed and the person next to you was a total stranger? Or you drive to the job you've had for 20 years and the building isn't there? What if your entire personal history was just rewritten overnight and you're the only one who got the memo? It sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, I know. But for some people, this isn't fiction. It's a terrifying, isolating reality they claim to have lived through. And we're not talking about just forgetting where you put your keys. We're talking about fundamental, reality-bending glitches in the system.
So, our first set of stories is about this exact scenario. People who woke up to find their world had been subtly but profoundly changed. Let's start with a really famous case that took the internet by storm. This is the story of a woman from Spain, Lorena Garcia. One totally normal morning back in 2008, she woke up and just knew something was off. It started with tiny little details, things you could easily dismiss, but those details started to pile up until they became impossible to ignore.
So look at how this escalates. It starts with her waking up in pajamas she didn't recognize. Weird, but okay. Maybe she was tired. She gets to her office, a place she's worked for 20 years, and her name is on a door to a completely different department, reporting to a boss she's never even met. But the real kicker? She was apparently still dating an ex-boyfriend she had broken up with months ago. And the new guy she'd been seeing for 4 months? Poof, gone. His number was disconnected, his building had no record of him, it's as if he was just erased.
Okay, so Lorena's story is about her life changing. Carol's story is about a whole place changing. In 2006, she was driving home and decided on a whim to take a detour through her old hometown of Riverside. She hadn't been back in a long time and was feeling nostalgic, but the town she drove into was not the town she grew up in.
And this wasn't just a few new buildings here and there. We're talking about the core landmarks of her entire childhood, gone. The house she grew up in wasn't there. Her grandmother's house vanished. Even the cemetery where her family was buried was all wrong. The graves were all for strangers. The entire town felt like some bizarre, warped copy of the place she knew.
And here's the part that really messes with your head. She was so freaked out, she just left. But years later, she worked up the courage to go back one more time. And everything was exactly how she remembered it. Her house was there, her grandmother's house was there, the cemetery was right again. It's like that strange alternate version of her town never existed. So what happened? Did she take a wrong turn into another dimension for a few hours?
Okay, let's shift gears now. We're moving from a reality that changed to people who seem to have slipped out of reality altogether. These are the stories of folks who just vanished, sometimes under completely impossible circumstances, leaving nothing behind but a giant question mark.
This quote just perfectly sums up the mind-boggling case of David Legg. He was a farmer in Tennessee way back in 1880. He was just walking across an open field. His wife and 2 kids were watching from the porch. 2 friends were approaching in a buggy. So you've got 5 witnesses watching him walk across an empty field. And in the blink of an eye, he just wasn't there anymore.
Everyone rushed over. They searched everywhere. There were no holes, no caves, nothing. The only weird thing was a perfect circle of grass where he was last seen that had turned yellow and withered. Nothing ever grew there again. But it gets even creepier. Months later, his daughter was playing near that spot, and she heard her dad's voice, faint and desperate, crying for help. It sounded like it was coming from somewhere else. The voice lasted for a few days, then faded, and was never heard from again.
15 months. Just try to wrap your head around that. Disappearing from your own life for over a year with absolutely no memory of it. That is exactly what happened to a college student named Stephen Kubacki. His case is one of the strangest and most baffling on record.
So check out this timeline. February 1st, 1978, he goes skiing. They find his tracks leading to the edge of frozen Lake Michigan, and then they just stop. His skis and backpack are right there. Everyone assumes the worst, that he fell through the ice. He's presumed dead. Then, 15 months later, he just wakes up in a field in Massachusetts, over 1,000 kilometers away. He's wearing clothes he doesn't own and has a bag with maps he doesn't recognize. His last memory? Skiing toward the lake. That year and a half in between is just a total, complete blank.
So, from people who slipped out of time, we now turn to someone who may have slipped into it. This next story isn't about someone disappearing. It's about a vision of the future so clear, so specific, that it just defies all logical explanation. And it came from a highly respected military officer.
All right, picture this. It's 1935. Air Marshal Victor Goddard, a big shot in the British Royal Air Force, is flying his little biplane over an old, decommissioned airfield in Scotland called Drem. It was totally derelict. The runways were cracked, weeds were growing everywhere, the hangars were falling down. Basically, cows were using it as a pasture. A forgotten relic.
So, a few days later, Goddard flies the same route. As he gets close to Dryram, a freak storm just materializes out of nowhere and swallows his plane. He's fighting to keep control, and then just as suddenly, he flies out of it into this weird, brilliant, golden sunlight. He looks down at the airfield, and it's completely transformed. It's bustling, it's active, mechanics in bright blue overalls are working on planes, and the planes themselves are all painted this weird, bright yellow color, a color the RAF absolutely did not use in 1935.
Goddard was completely baffled, but he flew on and told people what he saw. They probably thought he was crazy. But here's the punchline. 4 years later, World War II breaks out. The RAF reactivates the Drema airfield, and what do? They start using new trainer planes, which are painted bright yellow. And the standard mechanic's uniform? You guessed it, blue overalls. It seems Victor Goddard didn't have a hallucination. He somehow flew 4 years into the future and back.
A woman's entire life gets rewritten. A farmer vanishes into thin air. A student loses 15 months. An air marshal flies into the future. I mean, these stories are so compelling because there are no easy answers, right? They force us to grapple with some really big questions about how time and reality actually work.
So what is going on here? Are people like Lorena and Carol somehow slipping between parallel universes that are almost identical but not quite? Did David Lang and Stephen Kubachi fall through a time slip, like a crack in the sidewalk of space-time? Or could these all be some kind of incredibly complex trick of the human mind? The truth is, we just don't know, and every possible explanation just seems to open up a brand new can of worms.
At the end of the day, these accounts make you consider something pretty unsettling. That the reality we think is so solid might be a little more fragile than we imagined. That maybe time isn't a straight road, and that other versions of our world and even ourselves could be just on the other side of a thin veil. It really makes you wonder, if you woke up tomorrow and something was just a little bit wrong, would you even notice?